The idea of insight, again, is very important. Yesterday I was mostly focusing on the insight which leads to deeper meditation. The insight which leads to stillness and to peace, which is really important. It is showing that if you do really have insight, the sign of insight is stillness. So when people say they've seen this and they've had an insight into that, they don't really be concerned about the profundity of what they say. You always look for the emotional effect of their new understanding to see whether it does lessen their anger, lessen their tension, lessen their fear. And if it does lessen those things and make them a more peaceful, calm human being, then that is insight. But even if they have the most refined understanding of the meaning of the universe and they still get angry, then that's not insight. So you'll know insight by its results, not by just how profound are the things you say. And I always used to doubt that even when I was a young man, because I go to some Zen talks or some other talks by these famous monks or nuns, and they say something and everyone say, that was profound. And I would say, I didn't understand it. Exactly, that's why it's profound. So we had this terrible, terrible thing. If you don't understand it and it's gobbledygook, you think, wow, that must be deep. And I always doubted that, which is one of the reasons why when you go and see someone like an Ajahn Chah, it was wisdom, really down to earth. Everyone could understand it. And you realize the fellow like Ajahn Chah knew what he was talking about. And it always reminded me of a quote, from the quantum physicist Werner Heisenberg. And, I was into physics before, so I used to read all this stuff. And he had this amazing quote, which I'll always remember. And he was into quantum physics, and that's one of the most difficult of subjects to understand. But he said, if you really understand quantum physics, if you really understand it, you can explain it to the girl serving you a pint of beer in the pub, and she will be able to understand it. He said it's the ability to explain even complex subjects is a sign you know what you're talking about. And conversely, if you can't really explain it to others, it means you don't know what you're talking about. It's a very, very beautiful little saying, which is one of the reasons why when I hear like monks or nuns or teachers and they say something which on the surface sounds deep but which is real gobbledygook and they can't really explain these things, it means they haven't really understood it yet. And on the converse, if someone comes along and explains something and it's so easy to understand, that doesn't mean it's shallow. It just means the person knows what they're talking about. So the Buddha could explain these amazing sort of deep subjects. And it wasn't just intellectuals who followed the Buddha's teachings, it was just ordinary people, villagers, people with hardly any education. They could get it straight away because the power of explanation is the direct proportion to how deeply you understand these things. So the insight, don't ever get confused that something which sounds really, really incomprehensible must be insightful or must be wise. It's usually the opposite. And the simple teachings are the ones which are the best. So I promised myself and others that I would tell this old story to you today, but it's a great story on insight. And it's one of my favorite stories, the old monks don't lie story. And I love telling these stories simply because I enjoy saying them, even if you've heard them before. I get off on them because they're both funny and they're also profound. And you remember them. And that's one of the greatest things about telling stories, is you encapsulate some very powerful, deep teachings in such a way that people will always remember them and they'll be able to tell them to others, even to children. And the children get it straight away. Let alone the adults, they get it too. So this is a famous story, which was actually told to me in an airport when I was waiting in an airport. I can't remember where now, Just, sometimes you're waiting for the plane to go off and you strike up conversations with total strangers. And this fellow told me, I think it was from the Middle East, so I'm not sure exactly where this one comes from, but it's an ancient story which has very profound meaning, which I got at an airport. It's one of the benefits of travelling. So you should send me overseas more often so I can get more stories. You say no. So anyway, this is based on the tradition in Buddhism that monks would actually go travelling and just tour around with no home at all. And I did mention earlier in this retreat, the time when I went wandering around, just everything I owned, literally everything I owned, just carrying with me, and it was so light. And you could go wherever you wanted, with no appointments, no burdens, no place to go. You were totally free like a bird. And also no worries at all. No money, no worries, no place to go. You always had food the next day, always somewhere you could sleep. It was just perfect freedom. And that's an old tradition, and you have to stop that tradition on the annual rains retreat. It's called the Was in Sri Lanka, the Pansa in Thai. It's the rainy season retreat, and we keep that here as well. From the full moon of July to the full moon of October, the monks and the nuns are supposed to stay in one place. Literally because it's too wet to travel. So there was a monk who was walking around from place to place, and in the morning he went to a hut for his alms food, just with the bowl, simple food, that's all you need to keep you going for the day. And it was a poor farmer's hut, and the farmer and his wife were very devout Buddhists, and so they were very happy to offer alms food to this monk. And having offered him the alms food, they asked the monk, it's very close to the start of this rainy season retreat, have you got a place to stay yet? And the monk said, actually, no, not yet. And so the husband said, please, may I invite you to spend the rains retreat close to us. Now there's a little paddock, a meadow, just close to the river, and I can make you a simple hut. Just the monks live in very simple huts. For those of you who have been over to Bodhinyana Monastery, we still have the remnants of my first hut in Bodhinyana Monastery. If any of you want to see it, the water tank. I lived in half a water tank for the first rains retreat. And the roof is still there. It's only just steeple walls, just logs of wood on the side, and they got burnt down. But the site is still there, and the roof, which was most of the building, is still there. So you can see just how I lived the first rains retreat here. You don't need much to live as a young monk. So the farmer, the guy, built this monk a little house, so the monk agreed. And he said, we can build you a nice little hut, we'll feed you every day. All we will ask you is once a week you can come and teach us some Dhamma, give us some teachings, and maybe help with our meditation, and maybe give a few instructions to our kids, because they need a little bit of instruction as well. And the monk agreed, so they built him a nice little hut, very simple, and he spent the whole rains retreat there, meditating most of the day, just going out to the hut for alms in the morning and taking his food back. And once a week he would go to the hut, teach them some Dhamma, instruct them on meditation, even teach the kids as well. And after 3 months, the whole family loved that monk. He was like a grandfather to them all. And even the dog in the house would always wag his tail when he came, because he was such a kind monk. That's why when you go to Bodhinyana Monastery, you see all these kangaroos hanging around. But actually, it's not because they love the monks, it's because they're after food. But they like the monks as well. So after the rains retreat had finished, the monk had to take his last meal with his family and say, tomorrow I have to leave. I'm a wandering monk, the retreat period is over. And the whole family started crying. Even the dog put his tail between his legs and started whining. They loved this little monk and they didn't want him to go. But he said, look, I have to go, it's my tradition, I've been here for 3 months. But he said, you've been very kind to me. And because of your kindness and your nice food you've been offering to me, I've had a wonderful retreat, so good I've had some very deep meditation. And I want to help you. You're so poor, and you've worked so hard for me. I don't want you to be poor anymore. Because in my meditation, with my powers, I've noticed there's a treasure, a buried treasure, very close by. And I want you to have that treasure. So you don't have to work so hard, and your children can get a good education. And even your little dog can get much better food. And he said, but you have to follow my instructions if you want to find this treasure. He said, tomorrow morning, I want you to stand on the threshold of your hut. Now that's just where the door is. Stand at the threshold of your hut and wait for the sun to rise. When the sun rises above the horizon, pick up your bow and arrow. Point it at the rising sun, and as the sun rises, let the arrow fly, and where the arrow falls, there you will find the treasure. He said, you will find one there, as long as you follow my instructions, because I am an old monk, and old monks don't lie. And even though they were sad to see the monk go, they were very excited, because they were sure tomorrow they'll be rich. So the whole family were up really early, just waiting and waiting and waiting for the sun to rise, with so much excitement. And when the sun did start to come up above the horizon, the farmer stood at the threshold of the house. He picked up the bow and arrow, and as the sun rose, he pointed the bow and arrow in the direction of the rising sun, and he shot the arrow, and it went a long way, and they all ran after it. His wife, the kids, and the dog as well. And where the arrow fell, he got his wife to dig a hole. That's what men were like in those days. Guy gets a treasure, wife has to do the work. But, as I mentioned in the first time I told this story, guys, if you do that, it's bad karma, it will come back to bite you. So the wife dug the hole. She dug deeper and deeper and deeper, and what did she find? Nothing. Only trouble. Because that arrow fell in land belonging to a rich man, a merchant. And he saw them, and he said, you cannot dig in other people's land. That is against the law. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to take all your farm and land away from you for destroying my crops. And the wife said, it's not my fault. My husband told me to do it. And the husband said, it's not my fault either. The old monk told us to do it. And at that, the mention of the word old monk, the rich man went quiet. He said, an old monk told you that? He said, yes. And the rich man said, old monks don't lie. There must be something to this. What did he tell you? And when the farmer told the instructions, the rich man said, it's obvious your mistake. Look at you, you're so malnourished, poor, so thin. You've got no muscles on you. You can't shoot a bow and arrow. And the rich man said, I'll do a deal. I will shoot the arrow tomorrow morning, and I'm sure where it lands we'll find the treasure, and we'll split it 50-50. And the farmer had no choice, so he shook on the deal. The following morning, the rich man was at the threshold of the house. As the sun rose, he picked up the bow and arrow. He pointed it in the direction of the rising sun. As the sun rose, he shot the arrow, and it went much further because he had more muscles on him. And they all ran after it, the farmer, his wife, the kids, and the dog. And where it landed, this time, the farmer had to dig the hole. Because what you tell other people to do today, you'll find you doing tomorrow. So the farmer had to dig the hole. He dug and dug and dug. And what did he find? Nothing. Only more trouble. Because this time the arrow fell in some land belonging to a general in the army. And he happened to come round with some soldiers, and he saw them spoiling his property, and he told the soldiers, cut off their heads, every one of them, including the dog. And the dog, if it could have speak, said, it's not my fault, they told me to do this. But the farmer said, it's a rich man, he told me to do this. And the rich man said, it's this old monk, he's got us into trouble. And at that word, old monk, the general stopped and said, put your sword away. He said, because old monks don't lie. What did he tell you? And when they told the story, the general said, look, it's obvious why you haven't found a treasure. Now, you're a farmer, you're a merchant. What do you know about shooting arrows? You have to be a military man, a soldier like me to shoot an arrow. Tomorrow morning, said the general, I will shoot the arrow. And we'll split the proceeds 3 ways, because I know we'll certainly find the treasure. So the following morning, the general was there with the rich man, the farmer, his wife, the kids, and the dog. And the general stood at the threshold of the house. When the sun came up, he picked up the bow and arrow, he pointed it in the direction of the rising sun, and he shot it, and it went a long way, because he was a professional. And they all ran after it, including the dog, and this time it was the rich man's job to dig the hole. And he was fat, and he was just tired, he was puffing away, but he had to dig that hole deeper and deeper, and what did he find? Nothing, only big trouble this time, because this landed in the garden belonging to the king. And the king's soldiers arrested everybody. And he brought them in front of court, even the general. He said, General, you've served me very well, but this is against the law. You cannot dig in the king's garden. That's a capital offense. I will have to execute you. And he said, it's not my fault. The rich man started this. The rich man said, no, it's a farmer. He started this. And the farmer said, no, it's this old monk. He got us all into trouble. And at that, the king said, did you say old monk? Yes, because the king said, I'm a Buddhist. And old monks don't lie. I'll have to get to the bottom of this. So he said, I'm going to put you in jail for a few days until I find that monk and find out what's happening here. So they all got put in jail, including the dog. And they went, shut up. They went to find this monk. They soon found the monk, and they brought him into the palace, and they had this big sort of investigation in front of the king, and king said to the monk, you've got all these people and the dog into big trouble. Why? And the old monk said calmly, because, Your Majesty, they did not follow my instructions. What do you mean, didn't follow your instructions? Your Majesty, may I invite you to that poor man's house tomorrow morning, and I will give the instructions again and let you follow the instructions. And I guarantee, Your Majesty, that tomorrow morning you will find that treasure. But I will ask you to split it 4 ways, because everyone's got into trouble here. So the poor man, the rich man, the general, and yourself can also enjoy the treasure. There'll be enough there for everybody. And the king, of course, was fascinated. What did they do wrong? Tomorrow I will show you, Your Majesty. So the following morning, the king was there himself in this poor man's hut, with the general, the rich man, the farmer, his wife, the 2 kids, and of course the dog was there as well. Don't forget the dog. And as it started to get dawn, the king stood at the threshold of this little hut, and he turned around, and the monk said, correct, Your Majesty. And as the sun rose, he picked up the bow and arrow. Correct, Your Majesty. And then he pointed the bow and arrow in the direction of the rising sun. He turned to the monk, and the monk said, correct, Your Majesty. And he was about to shoot the arrow in the direction of the rising sun. Wrong, Your Majesty. What do you mean? Said the king. Your Majesty, I never said shoot the arrow. I said let it fly. And the king thought for a moment. He smiled. He got it. He opened up his thumb and forefinger, and the arrow flew straight down, right between his feet, where they were standing. And there they only dug a small hole, and found such a huge treasure that even a quarter of it was enough to satisfy a king. Imagine how much it satisfied the poor family, and even the dog, ate out of a silver bowl for the rest of his life. And the moral of that story, the meaning of that story is not just finding the money. Saying that if you want to find the treasure of the Dhamma, of the truth, the meaning of life, the peace, everything, enlightenment, don't shoot the arrow of craving, of wanting. Let wanting fly. And it will fall right where you are standing, right here, right now, with your body, with your mind, no matter what state it is in, even in a poor man's hut, in your hopeless meditation. Let the arrow of wanting fall. Don't shoot it. And where it falls, there's only one place, right where you're standing. And there you will find a treasure beyond your wildest dreams. Truth, contentment, happiness. That's a beautiful story which I love telling, because it's all about being in the present moment, letting go of craving, stop wanting anything. That's what we mean by letting go. And I mention that story again because people ask again and again, yeah, we know we're supposed to let go, but Ajahn Brahm, how do we let go? Please give us some more stories, some more hints, so I can let go. Can you please kick me up the bum to make me let go? Anything. I can't do it. If I could, I would. If it would work. So in the end, we just give all these stories until eventually, you're sitting there and you just let go of the arrow of craving. And it stops. And you get these great results. And that is insight. Now, number one, it's insight because it creates peace and stillness inside of you. But it's also, it creates this bigger picture, of, like Four Noble Truths, the big insights which give rise to enlightenment. I mentioned you, so many people know the Four Noble Truths, but they don't understand them. You chant them, you recite them. There are scholars who do PhDs on the Four Noble Truths, and they're still as stupid as ever. You know what PhD means? Someone in Malaysia told me the meaning of PhD. I never realised this before. It means permanent head damage. Sorry if there's any doctors in here. So anyway, a few doctors in here. I'm going to get in trouble afterwards. So, no, shut up, come on, get your act together, Ajahn Brahm. So, there we are, we get Four Noble Truths, all about the great thing about suffering and happiness. You want to be happy? Everyone, but no one gets happiness ever. Happiness is always in the future sometimes. It's always almost in your grasp, but you can't get it. Why not? Because you chase after it all the time. That is the problem. Can't we just let the arrow of craving go? And people say, well, if I don't chase after happiness, it will all go wrong. If I don't plan, things will go really wrong. If I don't strive, well, I'll get nowhere in life. Exactly. Get nowhere, like me. That is why, sometimes people get in the world, get it all wrong. They think the meaning of life is to acquire lots and lots of things and to be a winner, to be someone who gets places, who acquires lots of stuff, who's got lots of experience. I have these things called bucket lists now. I can't understand this. You get all these things you have to do before you die, and you've got to tick them all off. Me, I just throw the bucket away, and then I'm finished. I don't have anything to complete. I've already done that. It's much easier. Why do you want to do these things? Look, how many of you have yet to see the Great Wall of China? Do you want to see the Great Wall of China? If you want to see the Great Wall of China, just go and see the Great Wall of Bodhinyana Monastery. It's all the same, it's just a wall. And it's down the road here, 15 minutes walk, you can see the Great Wall of Bodhinyana. If you want to see Niagara Falls, if you've seen Niagara Falls or Victoria Falls in Africa, just stand in your shower and turn this water on. Water falling, that's good enough. Himalayas. You want to see the Himalayas? It's just mountains. These are mountains. It's big enough. If you want to see snow, go and open the freezer. Why do people want to do all this other stuff? Absolutely crazy people. I can save you a lot of money. If you understand. The Great Wall of China, yeah, tick that one off. Seen the snow, open the freezer. Niagara Falls, turn on the shower. Take a photo of you in the shower. Niagara Falls. Well, what is it anyway? Just the amount of water falling. So what? How old is the wall? Therefore, somehow, if the older it is, the better it is. That's crazy stuff. So that way, we don't have to have any wanting. We can be at peace in our life. And it's amazing to have all this bucket list, all the things you want to do before you can be happy. Just be happy first, and when you get rid of all the wanting. That's the problem, wanting stuff. And you find whatever you want, you never quite reach it. It's never quite enough. If you go and tick off one thing off your bucket list of life, you remember 2 other things you have to go to. And it's absolutely endless. If you find this beautiful partner in life, it's not enough. She's almost perfect, almost, but not quite. If you find the perfect job, it's almost good, but not quite. If you find the perfect monk, he's almost perfect, but not quite. If you get into first jhana, there's always second jhana. Oh, gee, I've got to work some more. There's more after this. I thought I finished it. This is the problem with wanting. It has no end to it. That's terrible. Whatever you get, there's always something more to get afterwards. That is endless. So after a while, you think there must be some other way. And there is. There is my old insight story of the donkey. A donkey is the most stubborn animal in the world. They're even more stubborn than your husband. You can hit a donkey and they don't move. Hit the husband, he might sue you, but at least he moves. That's why they have it in English, as stubborn as a donkey. It's an idiom. But you might try willpower, punishment to get that donkey to move. No way. You have to use like craving to get donkey to move. So instead of hitting the donkey with a stick, you tie the stick to the donkey's neck. So the front of the stick is 2 foot in front of the donkey's head. You put a string on the end of the stick and a carrot on the end of the string. So the donkey sees a nice carrot over here. And the donkey is stubborn, but it's also stupid. So there's a carrot there, so he moves towards the carrot to eat it. And of course, when the donkey moves, the stick moves, the string moves, and the carrot moves. So it doesn't matter how long that donkey walks, the carrot is always 2 foot in front of the donkey's mouth. You can see it. It's within reach. And it goes towards it. And it moves away. Isn't that your life? There's so many things that are in reach. You can see it. You go towards it and it moves away again. Whether it's a perfect relationship, whether it's a perfect job, whether it's happiness, health, contentment, even jhanas. Sometimes you see nimitta. Nimitta at last. You move towards it and it goes away. But that donkey had been chasing after that carrot for years. And then one day that donkey had the good opportunity to read Mindfulness, Bliss and Beyond by Ajahn Brahm. And it's been translated to many languages, been translated into Latvian, into Lithuanian, into Russian, into French, into donkey as well. So the donkey read it and he found out how to catch the carrot. So easy. So what the donkey does, he runs after that carrot. Really fast. But it doesn't matter how fast he runs after that carrot, the carrot's always 2 foot in front of the donkey's head, obviously. Because the donkey runs, the stick runs, the string runs, the carrot runs at the same speed. But the donkey understood from opening the door of your heart how to stop. So the donkey just stops. What happens when you let go, when you stop? The carrot swings further away. That's what happens when you let go in meditation. You fall asleep. You get restless. That is supposed to happen. There's nothing wrong. Just let go. Stop controlling, for goodness sake. Everything goes wrong. Yes. But what happens next? That carrot goes further away than it's ever been before. 4 foot in front of the donkey's mouth. And then something strange happens. The carrot stops and starts coming towards the donkey. In a short time, the carrot is 2 feet in front of the donkey's mouth. Its usual position, but now it's coming towards the donkey. Just like in your meditation. You know, you may have watched the breath with all these other techniques, and yeah, you can watch the breath, but that's as far as you can go. But now, your mind's been going all over the place, you let it go, mind do whatever you want. You let it go, and now the mind starts coming towards you. You're watching your breath like normal, but now it's getting more and more peaceful. And you're not doing anything, it's doing it by itself. The carrot is coming towards the donkey. And all the donkey needs to do, the carrot swings right close, and you have to remember this because this is one of the things people forget in meditation. Compassion. Kindness, that's an important part of meditation. You can't just watch the breath. Okay, I'm going to watch the breath. I'm going to let go, let go, let go. Be kind, for goodness sake. So just when the carrot comes close enough, the donkey remembers the instructions. Carrot, the door of my mouth is open to you. Otherwise a carrot bounces off your teeth. You get beautiful nimittas, but they don't get inside, they just bounce off you. Because you don't open your heart. And that is how the donkey catches the carrot. That is how you get this incredible peace, Dharma, truth. You understand the Four Noble Truths. You stop. You stop wanting. You let go of the arrow of craving. You don't want anything. You don't do it. And it all goes off, first of all. It all goes wrong. But then it starts getting right all by itself. You sit here, and all these carrots come in one after the other. First jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, psychic powers, enlightenment. That's what happens. But you've got to stop first of all. Stop craving, stop wanting. And now you get the insight into why the Buddha taught like this. You know, it's so clear. You know, sometimes, you know, what it's like when people, they practice this and they practice that. You know, it is like sometimes people get a computer or they get a microwave or they get something and they plug it in and then it goes bang. And only afterwards they read the instructions. Oh yeah. People are dumb. But when you understand the instruction, you understand, oh yeah, now I know why everything goes bang and why I have all this suffering in life and why things go wrong, when I get depressed, when I have pain and disappointments in life. You haven't read the instructions of life and understood them. The instructions in life say you can die anytime at any place. You won't get what you want. You don't need anything. Just let go and be peaceful and you find everything you ever wanted in life is right here, right now. Stop and the carrots and knife come to you. Sit under the mango tree and just the mangoes fall. That is what happens in life. But you have to do something, don't you? Oh God, look at our world. This is what happens when people start doing stuff. building big cities. So convenience, and they stress each other out. Get in cars so you can get to work early. Ha ha ha. I remember talking to some of my disciples in Bangkok, and they said that, now they live in Sukhumvit, that's Kesari and her husband Chert. It's very old now, but still hanging on. And he told me that 50, 60 years ago, to travel from one end of Bangkok to the other, from Sathorn to the bottom of Sukhumvit, it took him about 3 hours in an ox cart. Now it takes them 4 hours in a car. Progress. It was really funny when he said that. And yeah, we can understand that. So when your old grandparents, they never had enough money to buy anything. And now you still haven't got enough money because the bank owns everything. Your house, your car and everything else. You just work till you're dead to pay it all off. So what is it's a big progress. All this wanting. I always like, these computers and stuff. And, your smartphones. Now look, I mentioned, are they really smart? That's just the marketing campaigns. They're dumb phones. Why do they call them dumb phones? Do they make life more easy for you? More convenient? Or more troublesome? Have you got more peace and more happiness now you've got your smartphone and get emails anywhere? Or is it less time? Less happiness? They're not smartphones, they are dumb phones for dummies. So throw them away. You're not that important. You're not Obama. You're not sort of the Pope. So it doesn't matter if you don't get an email. The world's not going to end. Wall Street is not going to crash. So sometimes we think these are labour-saving devices, but they make more work for you. It's more craving, more wanting. Is this the way you want the world to be? In your world? Can't you have a bit of contentment in your life? And that contentment is just a beautiful part of insight. When you understand contentment, your husband, your wife, then they may not be the most beautiful, they may not be the best, but you're content with them. And then they become the most beautiful person in the world. Your place where you stay. Yeah, it may not be the best place in the world, it may not be some big mansion. But when you're content there, you can be happy. You can relax in it, and it does become your little place in paradise. Your old body, and it's getting old, it may not be the most beautiful, the most handsome, the most fit, it may not be the most slim and trim. But it's good enough, you're content. Understand how contentment takes away all the stress of life and learns how to appreciate things. When you want something more, you can't enjoy what you already have. When you want your husband to be different, you can't enjoy and appreciate him. How many of you have ever felt that you haven't been appreciated? All of you, haven't you? Why is that? Because we make so many demands on ourselves, so many demands on other people. And other people make demands on us. Can't we just be content, at least for part of the day? To say, I am good enough. My wife, she's good enough. My kids, they're good enough. I have to say this because so many people today all want their children, to go to universities. They want their children to be above average intelligence. But this is insight, this is wisdom. Half of all children will be below average intelligence. It's obvious, isn't it? Half of all children will be below average intelligence, but not mine. Oh no, not mine. Mine are going to be yours like other people's. So, take all the Buddhists in the whole world. Half of all Buddhist children will be below average intelligence. So you better get used to that and stop, being in denial and giving your kids a hard time. So that is also, out of compassion for children, who get such a hard time for their parents because they don't get straight A's. Work harder next year, you've got to get straight A's. But Dad, I'm below average in Dad, not in my family, you're not. So I tell Buddhist parents, and please listen to this if you've got children, if your kids come in the top 5% at school or university, or they come in the bottom 5%, you are not good Buddhist parents. You know, some Buddhist parents are so proud. My kid came in the top 5%. I said, bad parent. That's bad parenting for a Buddhist. They don't understand what I'm talking about. So look, Buddhists, we believe in the middle way. If your kid is in the middle somewhere, good Buddhist parents. We avoid extremes. There's actually a lot of wisdom in that. I remember reading, if anyone read any Greek philosophy, Plato's Republic. In the last chapter of Plato's Republic, Plato was, his teacher was his teacher was Socrates, his student was Aristotle, Plato's Republic. And he wrote about, the last chapter about reincarnation. The Greeks believed in reincarnation as well. And for those of you who, there's some of these English words you can recognize, and they all come from this description in Plato's Republic, that you go, when people die, they get taken by the ferryman across the river Styx to the Elysian fields. Sometimes people use that word in English literature, Elysian fields. That's the place where people rest after they die. Now the bardo, if you like, the place in between, the antrobhawa. And they rest there for a while until it's time for them to take a reincarnation, a rebirth. And the beauty, the thing which I really liked about Plato's description was that when it's time for people to take rebirth, they actually choose their rebirth. They can choose who they want to be. And he was saying only the idiots, the really nincompoops, they're the ones who choose to be rich and famous. He said, the wise ones, they always use like somewhere in the middle of society. Not rich, not poor, in the middle way. Not famous, not infamous, but just the unknown person who just goes through life, hardly anyone knows them. They're the happiest. No one is trying to put them down. No one is praising them. No paparazzi is taking photos of them. They didn't have photos in the Greek time, but you know what I'm talking about. Said they are the wise ones, not too rich, not too poor, not too healthy, not too sick, just in the middle somewhere. That is the optimum. And then they get taken over by the ferryman over the river Leith, where they forget everything in the past and they get reborn again. So that was how he described it. But I love the point where we choose, and we always choose stupidly. How many of you want to be rich? If you say yes, you're going to get into trouble. They did this, there's experiments again and again. They did this in the United States, they did it in Europe, they did it even in Australia. Because every psychologist and sociologist, they know rich people have got too much stress. They can't enjoy life. Well, I went to this rich person's house years ago. It was actually on the waterfront in the suburb of Shelley here. And it was this huge house. She was a Thai and she wanted it blessed. So I went in there to do the blessing ceremony in this house. And I'll never forget this because I come all the way from here, Serpentine. It was a whole hour. The first thing I wanted to do was go to the toilet. And say, where's the toilet? And it was a mansion, okay? So where I was sitting, she had to, absolutely honest, truthfully, I'm not exaggerating, she had to draw me a map of how to get to the toilet. In most people's houses, just turn left, turn right, and you've got the toilets. No, turn left, go down this corridor, up the stairs, down there, past the lift, and then you find it. It was so big. And you asked her, how many bedrooms, about 12 or 15 bedrooms in this house. And then I asked her, how many people live here then? And then she said, just me. And that really hit me. That was many years ago. This incredible rich woman in this huge mansion. How many people live there? Just me. Why can't you have any relatives stay with you? No, I'm afraid they'll ask me for some money. Do friends visit you? No. Because I don't know whether they're really coming because they're friends or because they want to get something from me. And that was one of the sufferings of being rich. You can't trust anybody. A friend comes around to see you, and you don't know, are they just being friendly because they want something? So this lady lived in a prison of her wealth. And that was, I've seen many people like that. And it's a terrible situation to be in. And I've seen other people live obviously very, very poor, and that's a terrible situation. In the middle somewhere, that's by far the best. A little apartment. There's that story about, someone sent me, please, if you see these great stories, please send them to me, because then more stories for my next book. And this was the lady in UK who just won the British lottery. And I think it was something like £32 million sterling or something. It's a lot of money. And what do you do when you win the lottery? And the first thing said, I'm going to buy my dream house. Like these old country mansions, in a beautiful Sussex hillside somewhere. So she bought this big mansion, cost a lot of money for many millions of pounds, and she sold it 1 year later at a great loss and bought a small house, really small house. And the newspapers interviewed her and they gave it the subtitle, "Honey, I Can't Find the Kids." And this was what was happening. Her house, her mansion was so big, she didn't know where her son was, which room, because the house was so sprawling. The son was in one wing of the house. The daughter was somewhere else on the third story somewhere in the west wing. And her husband was also lost somewhere in the house. It was such a big house, she never saw anybody. She couldn't find them either. And so she got a big house, but she was losing her family. And that was great insight which she had. She sold her house quickly and bought a small house. Yeah, they didn't have so many rooms, but she saw her children every day. She was always with her husband. They couldn't escape from each other. So they loved each other. They had to, there was no escape. She refound her family, even though she lost a lot of money. Now, I always love that story because that's why people are stupid. They think we want, and then we'll be happy. And so often it's the opposite case. That when we have contentment, that's the highest happiness. Contentment. How much do you need to be content? 0. How much do you want? And that is endless. So if you want to be happy, be content. Now, I've mentioned this with worldly stuff. What about your spiritual materialism? There's only 2 days left. I want some experience. I want a nimitta. I want delightful breath. I want something. See what spiritual materialism is like? And that causes the same suffering as a physical material. You don't have any rest at all. There's always another achievement to make. There's always another jhana, another psychic power to get, another course to go on, another insight to get. It's endless until you just stop it and let it go. You get the insight that suffering is caused by craving, by wanting even good stuff, let alone sort of the stupid stuff. So why can't we just let go? And if you see the Four Noble Truths, you'll see something which I call the 4 ways of letting go. And it's right there. People have been chanting it for years. But sometimes it's so obvious we don't see it. If those of you who know the chant of the Four Noble Truths in Pali, these are the 4 ways of letting go: chaga, patinissaga, muti, analaya. 4 ways of letting go. Chaga literally means giving. It does mean sort of donations, but that's easy to do, donations. How about forgiving someone who's hurt you? No, they've really misbehaved terribly. They've excommunicated you from Wat Pa Pong. Forgive them, for goodness sake. Yeah, I'm not going to let them sort of control my happiness or make me miserable. Someone who's cheated you in your business, robbed you of all your money, someone who's slept with your wife, someone who's abused your kid. That's what chaga is. Forgiving, giving it away. All you are giving away is just suffering. Chaga means giving away. It's a form of letting go. Give up your fear for the future. That's why people plan. You're so afraid of not being able to cope with uncertainty. You make all these plans of what you're going to do next. You probably already planned what you're going to do whenever, is it a couple of days, 3 days, when the retreat finishes? Have you made all your plans? Stop it! Who knows what's going to happen in a few days' time? There are things like airport strikes, there are things like storms. Sometimes the airport closes down, sometimes there's a bushfire and you can't get down the road. It's amazing just what happens in life. There's some people who came here and they never made it to the end. They planned to be here, but they're already home. And there's always things which happen. Somebody dies, someone gets sick or whatever. Hasn't that ever happened to you in your life? You've had to change plans in the last minute? Of course that happens. So stop making all these stupid plans. And instead, trust yourself that when it comes time for the end of this retreat, you'll have enough time and plenty of opportunities to pack your bags and decide what you're going to do. But don't do it now. People plan because of fear. You can cope. It'll be okay. So try living with more uncertainty in life, instead of having everything planned. And you will find not only will things go smoother in life, because you'll be able to adapt to the changing situations which you never know until they're there, and also life will be far more enjoyable. You come across some amazing experiences, people you never expected to meet, places you never expected to go, when plans go wrong. So people take me this place and that place, and when they get lost, I always praise them, say thank you for getting lost, because when I get lost, going to Kuala Lumpur or Singapore or wherever, that's where I see places I've never been before. So getting lost is really adventurous. And even the driver, I've never been down here before, isn't this wonderful? So when things go wrong in life, to me that's when they go right. That is the interesting part of life. That is where you learn so much and it becomes really an adventure. So more things should go wrong in life. I've only got 7 minutes to go, but I'm going to keep going because I'm not going to stop my plans. Have you got plans what you're going to do when this talk is over? This talk may never end. Ajahn Chah would do that, He'd talk for hours and hours and hours and hours. And even if you wanted to go to the toilet, you couldn't. You couldn't plan anything with that guy around. And that's one of the reasons it is. So learn to live with uncertainty. So that is like letting go. That's chaga, giving up. Giving up all your plans because you're giving up all your fear of what might happen in the future. You know you're adapt. Whatever happens, you'll be able to handle it. That means let go of fear. Let go of controlling. Give it up. So that's why you say, you can imagine, in meditation especially, imagine you've got the keys to your car and you give it to someone else. You look after it. It's called delegation. So when I meditate, I delegate. Mind you meditate. I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. I never meditate. I let my mind do it. Okay, I've done enough now. I'm just sit here. Whatever happens is fine by me. You meditate. That's called chaga. Pati Nisarga is the next way of letting go. And that letting go is literally a bit more active. It's throwing things away. So you meditate. What can I throw away? What can I get rid of? Have you ever been in your house and, spring cleaning, and you look at that, let's throw this away. Oh no, it might be useful later on, I better keep it. That's so stupid. No, throw it away, it won't be useful later on, just be more junk later on. And if you need something else, get it later on. But don't keep it now. See how much you can get rid of. There is a story over in Good Bad Who Knows, I was editing it a week ago, about my mother's mantle shelf. Did I tell that story earlier? My mother's shelf. Because when I came to Australia, it was about 7 years in Australia before I went to visit my mother for the first time after being in Australia. And monks these days, they go every year. But in the old days, when I was a young, that's what I keep telling these monks. But no, they don't go every year, but much more often. 7 years. And so somebody said, oh, you're going to see your mum. No, give her a present. Okay, and he said, what can you give your mother as a present? A toy kangaroo. You know those beautiful stuffed furry kangaroos you can get in the airport? So somebody was really kind, they gave this beautiful stuffed kangaroo, and I gave it to my mother, and she loved it. Like soft and cuddly, and it reminded her of her son, so that when I went back to Australia, she had a kangaroo there, to think about her son back in Australia. So she put that on her shelf. And of course, the next time I went to visit her, we started a tradition now, okay, so I had to get a koala bear. And when I gave her the koala bear, oh, it's so nice, it's so cute. So she put it on the shelf next to the kangaroo. And the next time I went there, I got a kookaburra, and then a platypus, and then the last time I went over there, I got a wombat. Like Australian animals, the cute little things, nice and cuddly and soft. And so when I gave her the wombat, she had all the other animals on the shelf. Had them for years, the kangaroo, the koala, the platypus, and the koala bear, and she tried to put the wombat on there, and there wasn't enough space. So a couple of the other animals fell off. And so she spent about an hour trying to balance all these animals on the shelf. And I said, Mum, just throw the old ones away, just keep the new one. No, they're cute, I can't throw them away, they give me good memories. And I thought, that's one crazy mother. And I realized that is what happens in your head. You're keeping too much stuff. And so you put something else in and things fall off. And I said, Mother, why don't you just throw all the other ones away? Give it to charity somewhere. Give it to poor kids in hospital because they can enjoy it much more. And then the new one has come in, the wombat, you can put it right on the empty shelf, and it won't be competing with all the other animals for your attention. Why not just keep one thing there? No. Now you understand how your head works. All the old stuff, throw it out so this new moment can come up and take pride of place, nice and simple, peaceful, and easy. So that, all the old junk, throwing that out is called patinissaga. All your old meditations, good ones, jhanas in the past, please throw them all away. Because if you're still remembering that great experience you had last time you were here, that is on your shelf, and that means nothing else can get on your shelf. That is why you can't get meditation again. It happens again and again. People get deep meditation in nimitta or even the jhana, and they can't get it back again. Why? Because the old jhana is still on the shelf, and they can't put anything else on it. So you have to throw everything out if you want to get deep meditation. Everything, the whole shelf, whoosh, clean it all off. Throw it out, nothing left. Don't keep anything. That's called letting go. Throwing out the junk. And the good junk too. And that's the third way of letting go is, what's it called? Chaka Patinissaga Muti. Muti is freedom. And the story behind this, I won't go over it in detail because it's an old story. The monk who went to teaching jail. He went to teaching Casuarina jail here in Perth. And after teaching for many weeks, they invited him to stay behind for a cup of tea and some cheese. And he stayed behind. And they started asking him just personal questions. Why did you become a monk? And what do you do as a monk? What's the daily routine at Bodhinyana Monastery? And then he told them the routine. And in brief, you've got to get up at 4 o'clock at Bodhinyana Monastery, but it is optional. You can always get up earlier if you want to, but not later. That's the only option. And they asked, what do you do then? You meditate. So, okay, fair enough, you're monks, you meditate. But what do you do? What do you have for breakfast? The breakfast you have here is really nice. Over at Bodhinyana Monastery, I get a cup of porridge. That's it. That's true? Porridge? There we go. And the prisoners were saying, in the prison, you can get bacon, you can get eggs, you can get pancakes, you can get waffles, you can get muesli, you can get health food, you can get sick food, everything. I was just trying to think, what's the opposite of health food? Junk food, sick food, every type of food for breakfast. You get anything you want for breakfast. They said, not just one thing. I said, well, that's all we have. Oh, okay, well, fair enough. But then what do you do afterwards? Then we work. That's why, you saw the monks working in here. Now, the monks put up these sound panels. They're over in Bodhinyana Monastery working now. You see some of the monks or the Anagarikas digging the trench behind the lower cottages. We work. And even I work as well. And the prisoners said, they'll never get us to work like that, not in Australia. We go on strike. Prisoners go on strike as well. They'll never get us to work hard like that. But okay, what time do you have lunch? We have, the lunch 11 o'clock. You go to Bodhinyana Monastery, you see the monks here. We eat out of one bowl. Now I know here you actually bring the monks separate sweets. That doesn't happen over the road. Everything goes in one bowl. Everything. Even ice cream. I've had that many times. The last time was strawberry ice cream on top of spaghetti. You should try it once. You haven't lived until you've had custard on curry. And they said, that's disgusting. In jail, they said, it's disgusting to do stuff like that. But we do that every day. And they said, I'd never do that in prison. And then they asked, well, what do you do in the afternoon? So, can you play sport? Because they don't understand that monks can't play sport. The story I tell is, and I did actually think, seriously, when I first came with Ajahn Brahm, I thought of, actually trying to get some more community feeling and some more interfaith connections. So I thought of starting a Buddhist football team. So we can play the Catholics and the Anglicans and the Muslims. Because when you play sport together, you have a bit more sort of friendliness. Because that's where you can make connections and bonding and stuff like that. And then I really started to think it through, and I thought, look, you can't have a Buddhist soccer team. Because if it was a Buddhist soccer team, it would have to play by Buddhist principles. If the other team wanted the ball, you have to give it to them. Compassion. Let go. If you tried a Buddhist cricket team, you wouldn't hit sixes. That really upsets, the opposition. You'd hit the ball up, catch. Out of compassion and kindness, may all other beings be happy and well. May the opposing team win, so you're happy. You'd never win, because that really is just so selfish and proud and conceited, and just opposite of what Buddhism stands for. So if you had a Buddhist sports team, it would be really good fun, but you wouldn't win anything. Now you can understand why sometimes Sri Lanka loses the cricket, because they think of Buddhism. Actually, they won, didn't they, recently? There's no Buddhism at all in Sri Lanka anymore. But anyway, so there we go. You can't play sport. We just meditate in the afternoon. Oh, fair enough. What time do you have dinner? Asked the prisoners. Dinner? We don't have dinner. We just have a piece of chocolate. We don't even have cheese over there. If you want cheese, you have to come over here. Cheese is banned in Bodhinyana Monastery. So that's why many of the monks come here in the evening. Not to listen to the... that's not true. They don't give you any dinner. You know, we have afternoon tea, we have dinner, we have supper in prison, whatever you want. So I said, okay, what do you do after, after your cup of tea? And the monk said, we meditate. I remember the monk telling me this. He said, because the prisoner said, don't you sometimes get tired of meditating? And the monk said, yes. At least he was honest. What time do you go to bed? Usually about 10 o'clock. But no, that's it. The monk said, no. What do you mean bed? We don't have beds. We sleep on the floor over there. And these prisoners were really taken aback, by how austere a Buddhist monastery is. It's much more ascetic than any prison. That's why I'm never afraid of going to jail. If I go to jail, it's like going on a holiday. 3 meals a day, nice beds, don't have to work. And if ever I want a retreat, all I need to do is punch a prison officer, you get solitary for 3 months. Great place to hang out. But then the killer was this prisoner. You listen to all of this, and you just get really caught up in things. You forget where you are, what you're saying. And this prisoner came out with this classic line, because he liked the monk. He said, that's terrible in your monastery. Why don't you come in here and stay with us instead? He actually said that. And of course everyone burst out laughing, and that's why I got told the story. And then afterwards I thought, hang on, there's something powerful in this. Because why is it the Bodhinyana Monastery, over the road there, has a long waiting list. How many is it now? 24. 24 people waiting for an opportunity to go to Bodhinyana Monastery. And there's a waiting list in prison of people trying to get out. Why? And then I started thinking, what's the difference between Bodhinyana Monastery and a prison? The only difference is people in the monastery want to be there. People in the prison don't want to be there. And from that, you got the insight into what prison is. Any place you don't want to be is your prison. If you're sitting here in this talk and think, when's it going to end? When is it going to end? This hall is your prison when you don't want to be here. If you're meditating and you don't want to be here, you want to be in Jhana, you want to be nimitta, you want to be anywhere other than here, your meditation is a prison. If you're in a relationship, which is really tough, you don't want to be in the relationship. Your relationship's like being in prison. You're in a job you hate. Every time you go to the office or the workplace in the morning, gee, you hate this. Your work is a prison for you. We make so many prisons in life. And the way to escape prison, you don't have to climb over the wall. You don't have to change your partner, change your job, or change what you're experiencing in this meditation. All you need to do is change your attitude to want to be here, rather than wanting to be somewhere else. Basically, it's not wanting at all. Just happy to be here. Then you're never in prison. They can put you in solitary confinement in the worst prison in the world, in Guantanamo Bay. If you're happy to be there, it's no longer a prison. You can be in a 6-star hotel like I was once, and being really fed up and bored, because I couldn't turn on the TVs, that was not allowed. Couldn't go in the jacuzzi. There's a big jacuzzi there. I didn't know which button to press, I was afraid. You couldn't use a minibar. You couldn't do anything. I have all this stuff in this 6-star hotel, and I couldn't do anything. You couldn't order room service and get something to eat because it was after 12. I had to look through it, and all this amazing, delicious food. I've put it away, you can't eat any of it. So I was in a 6-star hotel with nothing to do, bored. And I thought, I didn't want to be home in Bodhinyana, I want to be in the forest. And I realized I had just made a prison out of a 6-star hotel room. You can do that very easily when you don't want to be there. So I changed immediately. Okay, I want to be here. And I started meditating. No longer a prison for me anymore. You can make a prison of anywhere. You can make freedom in any time, any place, just by wanting to be here. That's the third way of letting go. Want to be here, wherever that happens to be. And then you are free. And the fourth way is, I call the Teflon mind. It's Analya. You know the word Himalaya? Himalaya is the correct pronunciation. That is a place where the snow settles. You got Meghalaya. That's very close to Bangladesh. That is where the clouds settle. Alaya means any place where things settle. Analaya is nothing settles there. I call it the Teflon mind. Or, like the Buddha simile of the lotus. You can piss on a lotus leaf and it just flows off, leaving no residue. You can pour Chanel No. 5 over a lotus leaf and again it all runs off, leaving no scent. A lotus leaf, nothing settles on it. Just like the human mind, you can receive praise or blame, scent or pee. Either way, nothing remains. It falls off it just like a lotus leaf. You have a jhana, nothing remains. It falls off like a lotus leaf. You have the most terrible experience of your life. It falls off like urine from a lotus leaf, leaving no residue. Now you know what letting go is. Total letting go of the past. Those are the 4 ways of letting go. That's insight. If you understand those 4 ways, meditation is so easy. You just give away. I don't want anything. I'm just here to give up as much as possible, to clean out my shelf in my mind, throw everything out. My past experience, which is blocking up new experiences, throw away. I'm just going to be happy to be here, whatever this happens to be. I'm sleepy, I'm happy to be sleepy. I'm restless, I'm happy to be restless. Can you do that? I'm upset, I'm fed up. I'm happy to be fed up. Happy to be here, no matter what it is. And lastly, keeping nothing, having the Teflon mind, the mind like a lotus, nothing sticks to it. If you can do that, you'll be enlightened by this evening. So there you go, know what to do. So that's the talk I've gone over, because today, no plans. Okay? So we're not